if he's really the same yesterday, today, and forever, if he died on Passover, he was buried on unleavened bread, he rose on first fruits, all of those speak of his first coming. With Shavuot, the Pentecost, when you had 3,000 getting saved, these weren't pagans in the temple that got hit with the bolt of lightning. Okay? If they all happened to the very day, the fall feast will be fulfilled to the very day of his second coming. The Feast of Trumpets will happen on trumpets. Yom Kippur will happen on Yom Kippur, and Sukkot will happen, guess what? On Sukkot. If he's really, and this is why, if we're not on the biblical calendar, and the other thing is, they have to be fulfilled in order. Pentecost couldn't happen until he rose from the dead. And guess what? He's not going to rise from the dead until he's dead. Okay? And so all of these have to happen in order. The same thing with the fall feast. Anyone hear anything about trumpets in the book of Revelation? Hello? Yom Kippur is all over the book of Revelation as well. And so Yom Kippur is Israel's national day of atonement. So I believe some year the tribulation begins. The Feast of Trumpets is fulfilled literally. And then after that, Yom Kippur, Israel's day of atonement, they realize Yeshua is the Messiah. And then comes the Feast of Tabernacles, where he tabernacles among men for the 1,000-year millennial reign. So, but this is why if you're on God's calendar, then you're going to, it really affects your theology in a lot of different ways, and you want to be at the dress rehearsal of the different events. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at Luke 21:25. God says there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. Now in Genesis, it says he created the sun and the moon and the stars for what? Signs was number one. We think it was for light and heat. But the number one reason he said was signs. What greater sign is there than eclipses? This is why God has Passover and Sukkot on a full moon, because you can only have a lunar eclipse on a full moon. This is why he ordained all the new moons, because you can only have a solar eclipse on a new moon. And so God wanted to, now there's been 12,000 some eclipses over the last 5,000 years or whatever, but most of them are insignificant. What matters is when they fall on the biblical calendar, then you connect the dots and say, okay, what is God trying to say to us? Okay, so he says there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, in the stars. And as many of you know, I talked about the 4 total lunar eclipses that happened all in a row in 2014 and 2015. Now, a lot of people wrote things about on that material, which I did not agree with. And then a lot of people are saying that I said things that I never said. Anyone who listens to what I said knows what I said. But I believe, just like when a bridge is out, you don't put the sign, the bridge is out, where the bridge is out. You're supposed to let people know a mile or two ahead, especially if it's a 60-mile-an-hour road. Hey, the bridge is out, slow down now. I really believe that these were signs of what was coming. I mean, it's been incredible the last 4 years regardless. But I believe these were mostly about 2017, 2018, where we have the anniversary of Jerusalem back in Israel's hands. You have the anniversary of 70th anniversary of Israel. And I think the most amazing things really are yet to come in the next this year and next year. Prophetically, you're going to see some incredible things. But the last time it happened, as you know, when Israel becomes a nation, you have these 4 blood moons in a row. When Israel recaptures Jerusalem, you have these 4 blood moons in a row. Many of you are familiar with the great American eclipse that happened not too long ago. The eclipse was on August 21st. And the hurricane, the big one that hit, was on August 25th. Now, let me ask you something. Talk about odds. I don't know if any of you guys are math people. But I love math, and I, was wondering, okay, when was the last time we had a total solar eclipse to go across the entire United States? What are the odds of that happening? Well, it happened 100 years ago, 1918, in World War I. Well, then the next question is, what are the odds of this major hurricane hitting Texas? Well, no major hurricane had made landfall in the United States for more than 9 years. September 13th, 2008 was like the Category 2 hurricane that hit Galveston that made landfall. But this one was a Category 4. So what was the last time a Category 4 storm hit Texas with Carl in 1961 was 56 years ago. Okay, well, what are the odds, though, of having a Category 4 hurricane hit Texas the same week a total solar eclipse crosses the entire United States, and it happening on the 1st of Elul, which is highly significant. It begins the days of repentance, of Teshuvah, until Yom Kippur. Now, you can all see that the odds are going higher. But get a load of this. What are the odds that there would be a Bible verse that talks about signs in the sun, referring to the solar eclipse, with the anxiety of nations and the roaring of the seas and the waves? Here you not only have a Bible verse talking about a total solar eclipse, you also have like a hurricane being mentioned. But what are the greater odds? The solar eclipse was on the 21st, and the hurricane was on the 25th, and it's Luke 21:25. The odds now are truly astronomical. Now, but even more than that, how many of you ever heard of UN Resolution 242? You heard of that? Let me see. Okay, here it is, United Nations Security Council Resolution 242. Okay, this is the resolution that was adopted by the UN Security Council on November 22nd of 1967, and it was all about land for peace. Okay, well, how many of you know that the United States is part of the UN Security Council and all of that? We're going to talk more about that in the next session. But here, it's all about land for peace. Well, Washington, D.C. is our central headquarters for our government, right? Do you know that great American eclipse happened exactly at 2:42 in Washington, D.C.? That was the maximum amount of darkness. I think that is just another one of those interesting things that happened. As a matter of fact, this one article I read said the 20th century was one of the most violent periods in human history, with almost 200 million people dying due to conflict. And it said that every single day there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic hotlines. Every minute, 20 people are physically abused by someone else. I mean, we are living in an age that is so like Noah's day. How could we not understand what's going on? And it says in Luke 21:28, when these things begin to happen, where are you supposed to look? Look up. Okay, to look at the signs in the heavens, to look at what else God is trying to tell us, because the redemption is near. Now, when you hear Matthew 24, what comes to your mind? Matthew 24, the last days. This is all about the last days. So let's take a moment, though, but here's what we got to do. We got to pull our Greek hat off and put on our Jewish hat, because how many of you know when you study the scripture, you have to look at it in context? So listen to Matthew 24, 6 through 8. It says, you are going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. Okay, so if you're sitting there in Yeshua's day and you're hearing him talk about wars and rumors of wars, what wars are going to come to your mind? What wars are they going to be thinking of? They're going to think again, see, that was 70 AD was when Rome destroyed the temple, but we're talking around 30 AD here. That hadn't happened yet. What wars is in the Jewish mind when he says wars and rumors of war? Hanukkah. Okay, that is huge. That, around 168 BC, the whole story of Antiochus Epiphanes and Hanukkah, and the other one is going to be the 9th of Av, which is when the temple was destroyed, the Babylonian captivity. So they're thinking, okay, because they thought he was going to come back in his own day, so they're thinking, wow, this temple in front of us is going to be destroyed, probably on the 9th of Av, which it did happen, but also, wow, Hanukkah. People, if you want to understand Matthew 24, I can tell you right now, Matthew 24 is Hanukkah happening all over again. And if you don't know anything about Hanukkah, you're not going to see the connection. But let's take a look at this. So their frame of reference is going to be around 587 BC when the temple's destroyed, and around 168 BC with the Maccabean revolt and the whole story of Hanukkah. Okay, so now let's listen to this verse. Before I go there, let me say this. Okay, so now the Jewish believers today, they're going to understand the ninth of Av. They're going to understand Hanukkah. And so what was one of the first big wars that took place in this generation was World War I. World War I, we always think in the United States of 1917 because that's when we entered the war, but it actually began on August 1st of 1914. And guess what that was? The ninth of Av. So when they're thinking, now we have hindsight 2020, they're thinking the ninth of Av. And what happens? World War I starts on the ninth of Av. We're supposed to go, wow, this is connecting us to this generation, to Matthew 24. Now, did you know the United States joined the World War I on April 6th of 1917, which just so happened to be Passover that year? Okay, so here we have another connection. Well, guess what? In 1917, you know what else happened? This is when General Allenby walks into Jerusalem on Kislev 26, which is Hanukkah. And so here, when you're reading Matthew 24 through Jewish eyes, and you read Wars and Rumors of War, you're thinking of the ninth of Av and Hanukkah, and World War I has the exact tie to the ninth of Av and to Hanukkah. And then it talks about how the end is not yet. But there's going to be the nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and it mentions all these things, and it says this is the beginning of the birth pangs. But then in Matthew 24, it goes on to say, learn a parable of the fig tree. Who is the fig tree? Israel is the fig tree. And it says, when it becomes tender and puts forth its leaves, know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, know it is near. It's at the doors. And then he says, most certainly, I'm telling you, this generation will not pass away until everything is accomplished.
I hope you enjoyed this teaching from ISO School of Ministry. Like and subscribe to get more of these. And if you enjoyed it so much that you gotta have more, you can go to isow.org to our website. And there you can find more of these teachings. Right below this teaching, you can actually find a link to the full free lesson that this clip was taken from. So please take advantage of that and check us out at isow.org.